In October 2024, a Spanish archaeological team conducting surveys in the Basque Country's mountainous interior detected something impossible on their ground-penetrating radar. 85 kilometers south of Bilbao, hidden in a remote valley between steep Pyrenean foothills, structural patterns appeared that shouldn't exist, concrete foundations and underground chambers concealed beneath decades of forest growth and abandoned farmland. When investigators excavated the site, they found something that made the Spanish National Police seal off the entire area within hours. A concrete laboratory complex built into the hillside, complete with research facilities, specimen storage rooms, and living quarters, all perfectly camouflaged by 79 years of vegetation and deliberately planted pine forest. Inside the main laboratory, German scientific equipment dated April 1945, preserved biological specimens in sealed containers, research documentation in technical German, and a name etched into a laboratory desk. Dr. Friedrich Kemper, SS Hauptsturmführer, Institute for Hereditary Biology and Racial Hygiene. Kemper was a Nazi scientist and SS officer who'd vanished from Munich in late April 1945. His death certificate, signed by American occupation authorities, listed him as killed during the final battle for the city. His name appeared on Allied war crimes lists for his involvement in medical experiments. His family was told he'd been executed. The case was closed. But the Basque laboratory tells a different story. That archaeological team had just discovered a fully equipped research facility built in the late 1940s, stocked with German scientific instruments and extensive documentation, clearly designed for someone continuing research that the civilized world had condemned as criminal. If you want to see what investigators uncovered about Kemper's real mission, and why Allied intelligence suspected Nazi scientists were conducting forbidden research in remote Spain for decades after the war, hit that like button. It helps us bring more forgotten World War II stories to light. And subscribe if you haven't already, because what we found in the laboratory's sealed vault will reveal research that raises disturbing questions about what happened to Nazi science after 1945. Now back to April 1945, when an SS scientist received orders that would take him to one of Europe's most isolated regions. Character Introduction 130 to 230. Dr. Friedrich Kemper was 42 when the war ended. Unlike many SS officers, Kemper held legitimate academic credentials, doctorate in biology from Munich University, 1932, specializing in genetics and heredity. Kemper joined the SS in 1937, recruited specifically for the Institute for Hereditary Biology and Racial Hygiene, a Nazi organization conducting research to support racial ideology. While the Institute's theories were pseudoscience, Kemper conducted legitimate biological research, studying human genetics, disease inheritance, and population biology. From 1940 to 1944, Kemper worked at institutes in Berlin and Munich, conducting research that became increasingly unethical. His involvement in medical experiments on concentration camp prisoners, studying disease resistance, genetic traits, and human biological limits, would later place his name on Allied war crimes lists. What made Kemper unique was his Spanish connection. His wife, Maria Ortega, was Basque, daughter of a Spanish Republican exile who'd fled to Germany in the 1920s. Through her family, Kemper had connections to remote Basque Country, a region Franco's Spain kept isolated and underdeveloped. By late 1944, Kemper recognized Germany would lose and understood his research made him a war criminal, but he also believed his scientific work had value beyond Nazi ideology. He began planning to preserve his research and continue work in a location beyond Allied reach. Between November 1944 and April 1945, Kemper systematically copied research data, secured laboratory equipment, and diverted funds. He also contacted his wife's Basque family, preparing an escape to Spain's most isolated mountains. Historical context 2:30 to 3 o'clock. April 1945. Munich was falling to American forces. The city had been devastated by Allied bombing. Now ground troops advanced through ruins while Nazi officials fled or committed suicide. For SS scientists involved in medical experiments, capture meant certain prosecution at Nuremberg. Allied authorities had compiled extensive evidence of Nazi medical crimes. Kemper's name appeared in documents recovered from concentration camps. Spain's situation was unique. Franco's dictatorship maintained neutrality but sympathized with Axis powers. After 1945, Spain became a refuge for fleeing Nazis, offering protection from Allied prosecution in exchange for technical expertise or simply ignoring their presence. The Basque Country was particularly isolated. Franco's regime suppressed Basque culture and language, keeping the mountainous region underdeveloped and heavily policed against separatist movements. But this isolation worked both ways. Remote valleys saw minimal government presence, perfect for someone wanting to disappear. Kemper understood he could continue research in Spain that would be impossible elsewhere. Franco's Spain had minimal scientific oversight, no war crimes prosecution, and desperate need for technical expertise. A German scientist could operate with remarkable freedom. The escape 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, April 26, 1945. American forces entered Munich's outskirts. Kemper activated his escape plan. April 28. A body was discovered in bombed institute buildings. The corpse wore Kemper's SS uniform and identification. American authorities processed it as Dr. Friedrich Kemper, killed during final operations. Death certificate signed April 30th. The body was a junior researcher killed during bombing. Kemper had already left Munich using false papers identifying him as Heinrich Müller, civilian medical technician. May 1945, Kemper traveled south through Bavaria to Switzerland, then into Italy using Red Cross documents. From Italy, the route led through France to Spain. By June 1945, Kemper crossed into Spain using forged Spanish papers identifying him as Federico Campos, returning Spanish citizen. Franco's Spain welcomed Germans, particularly those with technical skills. Immigration authorities asked few questions about backgrounds. July 1945, Kemper reached the Basque Country and contacted his wife's family. They provided housing in a remote mountain village 85 kilometers from Bilbao. But Kemper wasn't staying in the village. His destination was an isolated valley accessible only by difficult mountain paths, perfect for a secret laboratory. Building the laboratory 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, August-November 1945. Using diverted Nazi funds converted through Swiss banks, Kemper hired Basque workers through his wife's family. Cover story: building a private research station for agricultural studies. Workers, paid well and loyal to the local family, asked no questions. Materials were transported by mule train, cement, steel, laboratory glass, scientific instruments disguised as farming equipment. The facility was built into a hillside using traditional Basque stone construction combined with modern concrete reinforcement. The laboratory consisted of 3 main sections: research laboratory with German scientific equipment, specimen storage with temperature-controlled rooms, and living quarters with library. December 1945. February 1946. Kemper installed equipment, microscopes, centrifuges, incubators, glassware, all smuggled from Germany piece by piece through rat lines, or purchased through Spanish medical suppliers. March 1946. The laboratory became operational. Kemper had created something unprecedented: a fully equipped biological research facility in one of Europe's most isolated locations, completely unknown to authorities. His research logs reveal the purpose: continuation of genetic research free from political interference. The work has scientific value independent of ideology. I will prove this through results. Kemper believed he could separate legitimate genetics research from Nazi racial theory, a rationalization that would prove deeply problematic. Life in isolation 5 o'clock to 6:15. April 1946. Kemper's log: laboratory operational. Research resumed on genetic inheritance patterns. Specimens collected from local populations with their consent. Basque genetic uniqueness provides excellent study opportunity. Kemper lived at the facility, visiting the village monthly. To locals, he was Federico Campos, German scientist studying Basque genetics for medical purposes. The Basque people, isolated and suspicious of outsiders, nevertheless tolerated him due to family connections. The research was problematic. While Kemper claimed legitimate genetics work, his methods reflected Nazi-era approaches, measuring skulls, documenting physical traits, studying blood samples for racial characteristics. January 1948. 2 years of research, data collection progressing. Basque population shows unique genetic markers. This work could contribute to understanding human genetic diversity. Kemper rationalized his work as pure science, but the underlying assumptions remained rooted in discredited racial biology. March 1950. 5 years since war ended, no contact from former colleagues. I work independently, publish nothing, share findings with nobody. The research exists only in these logs. The isolation was both physical and intellectual. Kemper had no scientific community, no peer review, no validation. He was conducting research in a vacuum. June 1955. 10 years at the laboratory, local population increasingly cooperative. They see benefit in medical knowledge even if they don't understand the broader research. Kemper had begun providing basic medical care to villagers, treating injuries, advising on health issues, using his medical knowledge to build trust and access to research subjects. December 1960. 15 years. The research continues, but to what end? I cannot publish without exposing myself. The data accumulates but serves no purpose beyond my own curiosity. March 1967. Final entry, 22 years in these mountains. I am 64. The laboratory will be sealed. Perhaps future scientists will find this work and separate the legitimate genetics from the tainted methodology. After March 1967, logs end. The investigation 6:15 to 7:15. For 57 years the Basque laboratory sat undiscovered. The remote valley saw few visitors. The building, covered by deliberately planted forest, became invisible. Spanish authorities never investigated. Franco's regime welcomed German scientists and asked no questions about their backgrounds or activities. In 1985, hikers reported finding old concrete structures in the mountains. Local police assumed abandoned Civil War fortifications and closed the case. October 2024. A university archaeological team surveying historical sites in the Basque Country used ground-penetrating radar. October 8th. Researcher Carmen Iturbe detected structural anomalies too regular for natural formations, showing laboratory-type chambers. October 10th. Excavation began. The entrance was exposed, concrete laboratory building camouflaged by decades of forest growth. October 12th. Entry achieved. Interior remarkably preserved. Mountain climate prevented moisture damage. Laboratory. German scientific equipment. Microscopes still on benches. Specimen jars with preserved samples. Research notes in German covering walls. October 14th. Vault opened. Inside research logs, 1946 to 1967. Genetic data, photographs of research subjects, and the desk plate, Dr. Friedrich Kemper, SS Hauptsturmführer. International news within 24 hours. The revelation 7:15 to 9 o'clock. Spanish authorities assembled investigation team, historians, bioethicists, geneticists, German archivists. The research logs documented 22 years of genetic studies on Basque populations. Modern geneticists examining the data found legitimate observations mixed with Nazi-era racial assumptions, scientifically valuable data collected through ethically questionable methods. Cross-referencing with Basque village records, investigators identified families who'd participated in Kemper's research, believing they were contributing to medical science. November 2024. Researchers found death record in nearby town. Federico Campos, born 1903, Kemper's birth year, died August 1982, buried local cemetery. Occupation medical researcher. He'd worked as village doctor 1968 to 1980, providing healthcare while continuing limited research. Exhumation ordered. DNA compared with Kemper's descendants in Germany. December 2024. Results 99.5% match. Federico Campos was Friedrich Kemper. He'd lived at the laboratory until 1967, then worked as village doctor until retirement. He'd married his Basque wife Maria in 1948. They'd had 2 children, now in their 70s, living in Bilbao. To villagers and family, respected German doctor who'd helped their community. Nobody knew his past. He died age 79, peacefully, never exposed, never prosecuted. The Spanish government declared the site protected for historical study while grappling with its disturbing implications. Artifacts displayed at Basque Museum. Exhibition Science and Ethics. The Hidden Laboratory opened January 2025. Focusing on bioethics rather than celebrating discovery. Kemper's daughter learning my father was an SS scientist who conducted experiments in camps is devastating. That he continued research in our mountains for decades. We never knew. The discovery raised profound questions. The research data, while tainted by Nazi methodology, contains legitimate genetic observations. What should be done with scientifically valuable data obtained through unethical means? Friedrich Kemper escaped prosecution, continued his research in isolation, then lived as a respected village doctor. His scientific work, separated from Nazi ideology but never free from its methods, remains controversial. Sometimes the guilty don't just escape, they rationalize their crimes as science, continue their work in isolation, and die respected by communities who never knew the truth.